One thing I talked about, or no, I listened to a podcast about, which I found very interesting, was people were Lex Friedman had just visited the Ukraine, and he's like, the thing that's very crazy is, he's like, it made me realize how good the U.S. military was. He's like, we had some troops over there for rescue operations. We had some people doing stuff along those lines. And he's like, I talked to some of the Ukrainian soldiers and said, and asked who the bravest soldiers were, the Russians or Ukrainians. They were like, the Americans, hands down. And it is kind of crazy to think about, but I also saw someone else, Tim Kennedy, was talking, and he's like, the difference, you don't understand the difference between the U.S. and Russian military. We train, our soldiers are trained and equipped, they are healthy in any way possible, and are in the most peak physical condition we can possibly have them in. Obviously, not every soldier is shredded, but every soldier gets physicals multiple times a year. Eye appointments, eye doctor visits, dental, all of it. They get paid. They're equipped with high quality, state of the art weapons when it comes to guns, ammo, body armor, whatever. And we have really, really good equipment. And he's like, you don't understand the shit that the Russians have. It's like, these people do not have this. They're not trained. They don't have the equipment. They're not physically healthy, but they're there. So it's like, there's a reason why they're also struggling. And part of it, which is so true, which I thought about even with World War II, if you've ever seen the Battle of Stalingrad, the movie. Amazing movie. It showed how fucked up the Russian military was. Even 100 years ago. 80. But in the sense of being unequipped, untrained, and relying mainly on numbers. And at the time, they were fighting a well-armed, better trained German force. And literally they got to the point where the Russians were trying to hold these cities so bad because they were getting at the time fucked over that they were telling their soldiers to fight to the death. And if you retreat, we will put a bullet through your head. It's a little much. That's the one thing Russia has always had on us, is the numbers. Same with China. I feel like if you rank the U.S. on overall military, it's going to go U.S., China, Russia. If you go off of technology, it's going to go U.S., China, Russia. If it's going to go off of training, it's going to go U.S., China, Russia. If you go off of numbers, I think it would be China, Russia, U.S. That's the main thing they got against us on both sides, is just the number of soldiers possible. And that's the thing. One of the things that Lex Friedman talked about was how people say they're so brave and they have like a sense of confidence. U.S. soldiers do. And he's like, I think part of that has to do with training, because they know how to handle situations and just what to do. Where if you're an untrained Russian soldier, you're not going to be confident trying to go on the field. One, you're going to be scared to die because no one wants to do that. But two, you don't totally know what the fuck you're doing. And you're just being told by a superior to go do this. And if you have no formal training, it's going to be rough. And you're not going to be a good soldier. And that's just, it is what it is in that sense. The sad thing is, one thing that Tim Kennedy talked about is how the Russians are basically forcing people in ethnic groups that they don't want to be part of the draft for the Ukrainian war. Didn't necessarily know that, don't keep up on it that much, but it makes a lot of sense when the government can literally tell you who the fuck's going to go to war. And that is an issue that we've never necessarily had, because in the United States military, we basically fight as one. And I think that's one thing that the U.S. has always had, is training, military, technology, equipment, and morale. I feel like in all situations we have had a very strong morale because of what we stand for. We're not only fighting for a country, but we are fighting for freedom and liberty itself, and we have in almost every war. Not saying some of the wars we fought, let's say Vietnam or even Korea, were necessarily fought graciously or necessarily for the right reasons, or are in these wars for the right reasons, but at the same time, we at least had that backbone of what American soldiers are. Not saying we haven't had fuck ups and soldiers have crossed the line in certain situations, and that sadly is just what happens in war. It happens on either side. Terrible things happen. That's one reason why I hate war. But at the same time, I am glad to grow up and be an American and know that we take our shit seriously. Being my uncle, being a Marine, and everything, and not necessarily hearing stories, but knowing a lot of people in the military, we try to know what the hell we're doing. And I think that is one thing I'm grateful for is just our capabilities and hopefully protecting and serving for a righteous cause in some sense.